Right, well, this is the First Mile. It's a single-family loan document processing solution in 37 minutes or less. It's really part of a continuous improvement initiative when we look at our business process and where can we and how can we create ongoing continuous improvement. My name is Brian Mueller, and I am the manager of Integrated Records Management with Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. I've been with the Housing Authority for 11 years. And I basically helped build not only what was the start of a series of projects that started this process, but also I helped actually develop the program. I was at one point the program manager. Now I am actually the manager of operations as well as information services, because we are a hybrid, unique group with the products and services we deliver.
My name's Charlie Weidman, President and CEO of Buddha Logic. Been working in the content management world since the mid-90s and have been developing solutions and supporting partners like CHFA and others to bring content management and business process automation into their environments.
Awesome, thanks a lot, guys. And if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A or chat interface on GoToWebinar. And Charlie and Brian will get to the questions at the end of the presentation. All right, back to you guys.
All right.
Thanks, Chris.
So let's go ahead and get started. So, whoops, I just clicked the wrong button.
Here, I'll get.
Pardon my technical difficulties. I'm new to this.
All right, we'll get rid of this. Maybe, there we go. All right. So you just click on the, there you go. If you just click anywhere, it'll.
All right, so the challenge we had was that we saw ourselves as basically a black box. So we've been doing loan processing through an enterprise content management solution for years, but what we didn't realize is there's no absolute visibility within our process. The lenders would send in files and we would just say, well, we promise we'll try to get it done in one day, but we weren't sure exactly how long it was taking. Our loan documents our image files, and so we developed an automated process for delivery, but no way to see into that. And our loan document process consists of at least 350 to 500 page single-family loan applications. Sometimes that's over 1,000 pages, really. What we do is we use a classification engine to help us classify documents correctly. We assign applicable keywords, and we then store everything in our entirely in our image system, which is a non-based solution by Highland. Loans are then available for review. This is referred to as the first mile because we are literally capturing everything at the front of the process. And we do a validation process so that we can increase improvements and reduce processing time. So when we implemented this solution originally in 2009, we were like, well, we're going to try to do it in 4 hours or less. But again, we had no visibility. Our lenders' frustration became apparent, and they said, even though we're delivering content, I don't know what's happening to it while it's being delivered. So we had no visibility into the status of their submitted documents, and they called us what they coined the black box. Well, we wanted to change that. So we partnered with our department and our IT group, partnered together as well as with Charlie, our partner, so that we could create a new delivery portal that allowed the lenders to upload their documents and receive immediate status verification as to the receipt and validity of their loan results. We supplemented that with the inclusion of software called Kofax transformation modules, which identifies loan documents automatically. So prior to that, we were potentially capturing in bulk, or we were using barcodes, things of that nature. This does increase processing time for speed of classification because, in our loans, while there's 500 documents, there could be like them in 4,000 flavors, right? But this tool still does require human review to ensure accuracy in document classification and separation. And what we provided is that with our review process, we can provide 99.96% accuracy of all content delivered. That's a critical function of IRM. So working with Kofax, we achieved a new understanding of our process time to validate the systems of classification and separation. Prior to that time, we had no idea how long each process, whether it be a system process or a human process, would take.
So from Brian's, from my point of view as the partner and solutions provider, what has happened behind the scenes, which which brings all this to light is the work that Brian's team did to actually build and document their taxonomy. That was a huge undertaking, and that is one of the reasons why creating a automated process from that was much easier. It had the foundation there. Not only did they create a taxonomy that's usable, they documented it so they can share it with their internal groups. They also reviewed their processes and streamlined those, and threw things out that weren't working and made things that were working better. And the last piece is the continuous improvement approach, which is always looking for new things to fix, to improve that timing. The other part of this is the education that Brian Teams brings to not only the internal staff and all the people who work at CHFA, but the external, which includes early engagement with some of the lenders and partners to help, for example, just send us files with a standard naming convention. Now the time it takes us to ingest and figure out what you've sent us shrinks significantly.
That's right. Just one more point on that slide. So with what we do internally as part of creating visibility across business units is what we call a walk a mile program. And it actually allows staff to actually go walk a mile in another business unit and actually gain their expertise as to what that business unit is doing. So every one of my team members has participated in walk a miles, especially in our single family production areas, so that they can gain that expertise. Because again, when you have more of like an entry-level staff, they're not all going to know a portfolio of our complexity. But having that staff involvement and having them learn, we can actually up-ramp a new employee in like 3 to 4 weeks into understanding the complexity of our classification engine and what is in our portfolio. So what we did was we identified that there was a lag time of more than 15 minutes between our document validation touch points. Those are the actual human pieces to our entire process. And our process, actually, I'm more than happy, my information will be here at the end to share that with anybody about what our process looks like as a map of what are the system activities and what are the human activities. So what we did was we established key performance indicators to target of getting our document batches from review to validation in 3 minutes, 3 minutes and 5 seconds or less on average. In some cases, our values were more than 15 minutes, and we were trying to really determine how do we get that population down. So using analytics to create insight has created a culture shift in IRM. And prior to this, we had no analytics. We weren't able to see into our system. We didn't know what the system timings were versus the human timings were. And now we can pull data right out of our processes and see how long each step takes. We can discover where the delays are, or we can increase awareness of performance. And this actually has motivated my entire team to step up their game. This helped them deliver better service and do it faster, more accurately. And they actually now compete with each other. So again, for us, it's about achieving measurable improvements. So measurable improvements include, and this continues to just change every day. So, but we achieved a 63-minute single-family loan processing time in 2015. Prior to 2015, we didn't know if we were 4 hours, 8 hours, 2 days, 3 days, what we were. We had no insight into that.
And that 63-minute is from the minute it comes in the door to when it gets to a processor.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's end-to-end time.
Okay.
And then because we had the visibility capability, it helped us to improve our average time to 37 minutes for our single-family loan processing time in 2016. So we drove our time down by a great percentage, almost half. And then at the same time, our company was handling record volume. We really went up 42% in our loan volume from 2015. And in 2016, we actually increased our loan volume again. So we finished the year out around $770 million for our single-family pipeline in 2015. We went to $1.3 billion in 2016, and we did that all without an increase in headcount, and we handled that 42% to 53% increase in volume, and we did it in the minimum amount of time. We also achieved genuine document accuracy rate, which is part of our business practices that we participate with Jenny May, and to really deliver content at 99.87%. Prior to that, our error rates were at least 5%. So we truly have gotten a nearly perfect product. We also won the First Mile Solution of the Year award from Lexmark Kofax in 2016, beating out both international and Fortune 500 companies. And we are also actually recognized by the National Council of State Housing Agencies for that same innovation and operations based on this process.
And again, from my point of view as the solution provider, one of the things that we were able to do with the Kofax transformation modules, or KTM, is create a model that represented the CHFA taxonomy. And we didn't have to build the model from just, we get these documents in, we get these documents in. Brian's team had done the homework to say, here's what we're going to build it on, which, again, getting it in place and design made it much faster. There's also what goes on behind the scenes is care and feeding of this. The recognition that content has a shelf life, and especially in the mortgage industry, you said 4,000 flavors for one document.
That's right.
And so you have to look at the content of the document, not what the format is. And so what we've done is we've made sure that as time goes on, we drop off content that is outdated, is not fresh, and we add and train new documents in based on new documents coming in your door.
That's right.
But that's a commitment to it, and CHFA does that on a monthly basis. And then the last piece is the self-monitoring.
That's right. Which
I think one example of how the process improvements have come to light. The straight-through documents were one of the processors in your department said, we already know that what this document is. Why are we taking the time to open it and review it? So we shrunk our queue by 50% by saying we've identified a straight-through document. It just goes right into the repository.
And there's no human intervention.
Exactly.
And then just speaking about the variability of it, the constant regulatory changes, that occur in the housing industry, right? They cause documents to change all the time. And because those regulations change and the content of those documents change, we prune our tree of anything that's older than a year, basically, because by that time it's too stale and too stagnant. And the fact that we are feeding it monthly really makes sure that the products we're delivering are the best that they can possibly be.
And that improves your accuracy,
yeah,
especially with classification. And you don't get false positives for information that is old and stagnant.
Well, and the more you have that accuracy, the less human intervention that has to occur. And we know that there has to be a human step in this. But again, if the computer can be nearly perfect, that means, what normally would take somebody a minute or two to be able to review, they can do in seconds versus having to go through, let's say, something in 3 minutes. And actually, we have a driver for the team to try to get everybody down to at a maximum 2 minutes and 30 seconds, regardless of the batch size.
Great.
So obviously, it's all about effective use of resources. So the goal of a nonprofit is to do more with less. And CHFA is no different, right? The first mile improvements have allowed IRM team to handle 42% of 60% increases in loan volume without increased headcount. So our operations team is about 6 individuals, and they are literally handling 6,000 to 7,000 loans a year. Since IRM is now responsible for document classification, our home finance team is able to evaluate more loans in less time, which allows for faster decisions to either approve or suspend a loan. Right? I think the whole point of any content management practice, or even just technology in general, is that you're trying to move toward a, kind of a synergized one kind of impact statement. It's like creating an engine of decision, right? Nobody wants to wait in line for a long period of time to have something happen for them. So just like with any kind of purchase at a fast food restaurant or even a home loan, you want that decision to be made as fast as possible. And so by us being able to use our resources effectively, we're helping to make those decisions possible for our analysts, because they get the content immediately, and they've actually changed their cycle times to same-day service based on what we're also helping them achieve.
Right. The analysts, what I've seen too, is the confidence they have in the results that you guys are providing. So that's another piece that's hard to measure, except that they get more confident, and now, like you said, their times are shrinking because, hey, we know it's gone through our mill. We're confident we've got the right document set. There's less interaction to say, where's my document? Why is this wrong?
That's right.
That's shrunk considerably.
Well, and then because of that, it's actually driven process change in their business area, so that they're working to actually reduce times and publish that, as this is how we're going to support you to their lending partners and customers.
Very good.
So, benefits and costs. Obviously, CHFA's greatest benefit is to have the ability to increase production by almost 50% without adding headcount. Additional cost savings, including lender savings from shipping, reduce physical record storage, and destruction costs and paper costs. So really that is equal to over $1 million. Just last year alone in shipping, we saved our lenders $656,000 in FedEx and UPS costs because of the fact that they can do all of this entirely through an electronic platform. That's just FedEx and UPS costs. Right? And that's also not the cost of, let's say they had to send a paper file and generating that file, especially if they had an electronic system and we didn't. Right? The fact that we would have to store that. For every 10 loans, it's at least one box at Iron Mountain, which is about $9 of storage on a monthly basis. Right? You add up all those boxes, so 10 loans, right? I mean, there's thousands of dollars in storage costs as well as the later on destruction costs. So literally we are saving at least $1 million or more a year for both us and our partners.
Right. Well, and the fact, like, your real estate is expensive. Yeah. So you've kept your building lean and mean, and you've repurposed what used to be storage.
Yes.
For other activities.
Yeah. File room actually used to literally go across the entire third floor, and actually it took 4 windows of space that were not light that was not being shared because it's behind 4 walls. That's all completely different. We maintain a very minimal amount of actual physical storage, enough so that we can fit basically our entire file room on 12 library cards. So that's a big impact.
That is. It's huge.
Obviously, this has got to be replicable, right? If you want to make a solution that's important, obviously HFAs are document-intensive organizations. To achieve operational efficiency, we had no choice but to transition to image document platform, which is the basis of enterprise content management. Right at the time, we may not have understood what enterprise content management really meant, but now, I mean, we are experts in that, and we know that image documents is a must. And then, obviously, to achieve that next level of speed and agility, an HFA would need to consider investing in a document classification engine. This is an upfront cost, and it's an ongoing cost, but it has resulted in overall savings, and it does pay for itself. And this is a key to the incredible operational efficiency gains. I actually discovered this technology in 2006 at an Association of Information and Image Management conference, and I kept going back year after year, drooling over it, and I went and begged my company. I said, I know this isn't a very expensive car. I know this car is going to make you want to, not want to get the car. But we bought the car in 2008, and in 2009, we did our first loan on February 2nd, and ever since then, it has truly changed the way we do business.
Right, and I remember coming into having the new car, and it smelled really good, and things were happening, and it took time. It didn't you didn't turn on a spigot. You took your time, you did your back research, you built a document model, and then you started applying the tools to it rather than taking a tool and making it fit.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of the challenges are around just looking at any document classification system, because there are a lot of them out there, but they don't all work the same way. And that's why, to me, while this is a large investment, and it may have cost us a lot in the beginning, it's literally paid for itself more multiple times. And the fact that we went with a solution that is by a company that has been around for 20, 30 years doing this kind of delivery makes sense. And then also working with a partner who has the years and years of experience makes a huge difference on being able to deliver.
Right. And the next step of that replicable is that it's maintainable. Yeah. You've got to. One of the things that Brian educated me on as a solutions provider is no longer looking at an ECM project. It's not a project anymore. It's a program. Companies need that flow of information. We've got to support it, budget for it, maintain it, and grow it.
That's right.
And that's one of the things that also CHFA has bellied up, and they support this as one of their key pillars
Yes.
in maintaining and growing their business.
Yeah, we have like 5 functional areas basically. You have technology development or program management, and one is business intelligence. The other one is ongoing line of business systems. Enterprise content management is also a very big part of that, and the fact that we do have an annual budget and support from leadership as well as staff makes a big difference. And I am and my team, we are champions for this program. So we do provide education and training for internal and external customers. I am a share to the utmost on documentation on how to process, access, and store content. I literally my taxonomy I've shared all over the country. I just recently shared it with Minnesota Public Housing Authority, and we try to be an innovator in our space, and so that's what's really important.
Right, CHFA and Brian especially is more than happy to provide the pain and the pleasure part of what we've done here. And he approaches it as the more information people have, the better these things work. And I've always felt like a partner, not a vendor. I've been part of the team, and I think that's key in what Jeff has done, what Brian brings to the table, is that's what makes a successful program.
And Charlie is a partner, and he's directly invested in our success, and he's been a real key factor in keeping us as successful as we have been. So our obviously it was achieve strategic objectives, right? Rapid processing of single-family loan files is evidence of advancing continuous improvement. That's a key philosophy that CHFA has embraced to improve our operations, and we believe that more efficient and effective operations lead to increased profitability, which allows us the ability to have greater community impact in the communities that we serve. Our goal is to make sure that we provide opportunities for every Coloradan to have affordable housing and jobs and things of that nature. And so for us, it's really about making sure that if we're going to do something, we're really making an impact, not just internally, but externally to our communities as well. So what it really comes down to in the end, too, and what really helped us with this black box challenge that we had was an analytics review. Can you blow that up, Charlie? Yep. Just make it bigger, and then I'll go through it. I wanted to present actual live feed of my reporting system.
So bring up your
no, just go ahead. Just blow that up if you can. Let's get it as big as you can.
Yeah. I think it's right down here.
So you can't measure you can't manage what you don't measure. If you have no insight, how are you going to know what your black box looks like? So using analytic tools with Kofax as well as Highland's on-base solution, we were able to build a great set of reporting tools. So the first report you're going to look at, which is on the top left, is prior to us knowing what our processing time was. This is an end-to-end report from the moment it is ingested in the system and goes through an electronic process to even the touch points of human beings to the time it's actually exported out into our content management platform. This shows that when we first got view of analytics, we were processing it 64 to 81 minutes. We had no visibility or idea that we were taking that long to actually go end to end. But then once we actually saw what we were doing, you could see that our trend line, stay over there, Charlie, really quick. You can see our trend line went down to 40 minutes and then never went over 60 minutes in all of 2015, right? Obviously, there's some spikes in time that occur because of high volume and loan production or even system issues. But once we got through 2015 and with that visibility, we did it again in 2016. And you can see for the majority of that time frame, we were like less than 30 minutes, right? We did have a spike at one period of time, but there was a performance issue. Now, if you go to the next one to the right, Charlie, so that one is actually the lag time of individuals, the processes the human beings are actually interfacing with. So this is the Docker view where they're actually making sure the classification the system provided is accurate, as well as the validation process. So these are the 2 points in which human beings are physically touching. And you can see that we literally got it to 85% or almost 85% because we finally had that visibility that all batches, everything that any human being was touching was going to happen in 15 minutes or less, and that's been driving it down. And actually my updated reports, which I'm happy to share with anybody if they want to contact me after this, I actually now include my operators, because by actually showing their their involvement, it actually is helping them drive a better pattern of wanting to do better and be faster. And so we've actually, on all of our reports, actually added our operators into the visibility of their initiatives so that they know that they're being, one, held accountable for their actions, and two, they have a direct impact on overall production.
Right, and the fact that you make it available to everybody in the entity,
yes,
is huge. I think they realize that, and they know, hey, I'm going to show up today, and I'm going to continue to do this good work that I'm doing, and it's amazing how your numbers have grown that way, and how much better everybody is paying attention.
Well, and what we're planning on actually doing this summer is we're actually going to start broadcasting our dashboards on TVs around the company, so that at any given time people know exactly what's going on in our business area, because we are completely transparent and we want people to know the value. And you can see in this next report, it actually breaks down our distribution of services that we provide, and it shows exactly what areas of the company are getting, the services. But we also promise that we are going to try to deliver as quickly as possible. We don't want to be a service area that doesn't respond, and so we actually show and measure every aspect of that. And if you'll go to the right. So I use an airplane reference for this, right? In Six Sigma, you want it to be nearly perfect, so it's 6 variations of perfection almost, right? When you're building an airplane, it's better be 99.9999%, safe. Because if you want to get on that plane and feel safe, then it's got to pass rigorous tests. Well, we put ourselves out there, and we actually judge ourselves, and we have our way to report on our errors. And as you can see, well, it may not be the strongest because it's hard, but we literally only had, out of 221,000 documents when this specific report was run, only 623 were wrong. So that's a 99.81444%. I mean, that's an incredible level of accuracy to be able to say that's the product I'm delivering. And that the people that are receiving that product, which are the analysts who are going to execute on the decision as to whether they have a whole loan file, whether everything is there, whether they need to approve or suspend it for other things, are able to do that because of the fact that we're delivering such a great product. And again, we did not have this visibility prior to 2015. And so we were never able to manage to this. But now, because we have the right tools, we have a great partnership, and we are willing to be so transparent, we can manage what we by measuring. And it actually is driving greater improvement for my team.
Okay. Wow. It's been a very good adventure and continues to grow. And I think you guys are on the cusp of continuing to bring in more business with your current staff. And Brian's and CHFA's philosophy is to continue to look for opportunities and potential tools that will improve their processes even more.
That's correct. Yeah, we are literally trying to, one of our engagements is really, we've extended ourselves to our largest business unit, but we want to extend ourselves across the entire enterprise, to be able to deliver first mile solutions to every business unit. And we know that there's an opportunity for that.
Cool. Awesome. Let's take some questions. And actually, we had questions from, it was earlier in the presentation. Can you give an example of what you were trimming? I think maybe let me see, Howard, can you remind us to what that pertains exactly? Josh, why don't we let's do another question first.
Okay. Carlos, if you open your chat box,
yep.
see the question.
Okay.
Oh, actually, documents that you were trimming from your files. Documents that you were trimming from your files.
Documents. Oh, you mean the oh, you mean the pruning. When we're cleaning up things?
I believe, yeah.
Okay. So the model requires you to, so if you think in terms of, let's just say we had 1,000 documents and we need to figure out, what document it is. In order to do that, we have to create a model that has content that's able to recognize what content is that you're just processed and match it. And so what we do is we realize that as the model continued into the future, documents that were a year old, sometimes even 6 months old, were impacting the recognition and the accuracy of doing the classification, because it had data that was either outdated or words that had changed enough that it was providing incorrect classification results. So we started pruning older documents, and it just became part of the practice.
And also, too, we weren't releasing as often as we needed to, and so that has a direct impact on the level of accuracy we're providing. Because if you have stale content, in your tree, basically, or on your bush, whatever it is, you're not going to get the most impact from that. So literally, we were not able to release on a monthly basis, and so we started this process of reducing the amount of stuff that we were maintaining for long periods of time.
Cool. Josh, next question.
We have a question for Brian. What was your biggest challenge in this process?
Obviously, one of the biggest challenges is obviously one, getting adoption and acceptance, getting user involvement, getting the business to realize that this really was going to change their way they did business. For a long time, I actually spent 6 months as part of this program development, where I would actually sit with each individual analyst to show them that going to this level of delivery will make a huge benefit. And for us, while there is a return on investment, it hits your bottom line, which is the dollar. Also, portfolio that they may never have had exposure to. A lot of my staff have never worked in the mortgage industry prior to this, and again, we were able to develop a process where we can get new staff up trained in as little as a month or less.
Let me see. Question from Ruby: is it possible to get a sample copy of the reports with those out of the box from Kofax Insight?
So I can provide you samples. I can export them as Excel, but a lot of that was actually us working with. So I have Charlie as my partner, but I also have a developer, and so we use actual SQL reporting services to pull that information from Kofax as well as Highland's OnBase. So that's actually, those reports are a lot of times amalgamation of 2 different systems and their communication with each other. But I'm more than happy to send them. But I also can speak that Kofax does have several analytic tools that can provide the exact same dashboards, probably with a lot easier use. For us at the time, we didn't have it implemented at that point. We do have Kofax Analytics now, but we kind of work together using Charlie as well as my developer to build the best exposure. But I'm more than happy to share everything that we can.
Just one quick follow-up question from, let me see, Howard. How accurate is the document recognition?
So I would say it's probably well over 90% accurate just by the engine itself. Right? I would say my staff, so let's say there's 79 documents in there, and let's say one batch. They maybe have to review 3 of them or 4 of them. You know what I mean? Right. So it's gotten tremendously better. I think when we first went out of the box, it was 72% accurate, and we've evolved it to, literally, because of the fact that we are so cognizant of trying to create the best model, it's probably 92% accurate before my staff touch it.
Well, I guess my first thought would be that you done your homework. You understand that will help supply the solution that would match your process.
And whoever is asking that question, I did that, exactly what you're doing, as looking for how to implement ECM systems. So, you know, if you don't want to reinvent the wheel, again, please feel free to contact me and I can walk you through. That's exactly what I did with Minnesota Public Housing Authority. They're trying to figure out how to build their own ECM system. And I have a great understanding of vendors and, you know, and depending on the complexity level, sometimes you don't want an enterprise content management system that requires an army of developers. You know, and so that's why we specifically chose two sets of tools for our content management environment. One was, again, I mentioned it earlier, Highlands OnBase, which is a point-and-click configurable enterprise content management solution that has a wide range of modules. But the other is Kofax, because Kofax, too, has a broad representation of tools. But again, the research is truly important.
Awesome. And then, so we have questions about the slide deck. You make them available along. So we're actually recording the session, and all registrants will receive a link to the recording as well of the slide deck, so you can go over the slides again.
And I have lots of other presentations on how to build a program and what creating an enterprise, other things that I'm more than happy to share with you.
What were some development and deployment?
I would say some of the bigger issues were the adoption, the comfort level that the operators had with it. So there's a feedback loop that has to happen. When we put the model in place and it gets pushed out into production, one of the parts is to say, before we had the analytics and started measuring everything, is to get feedback from the operators to say, hey, you've got to tell us when you're correcting out of 25 documents, you're correcting 24, you need to stop and come find us, you know, because we don't have something right in the model. So that was one of the biggest challenges associated with getting this model right. And Brian had the patience, and so did CHFA, to get through that growing period. I don't know if you recall, but we had some issues where people weren't telling us things were broken.
Well, and that's part of the problem too, is what happens when things are not accurate, it actually will cause a false suspense. So the loan will go into a suspense state for an inaccurate document. And they literally were, you know, while they were frustrated customers, they weren't sharing that information with us, and so we couldn't. You know, and I think also part of the complexity too, though, of building anything like this and deploying it is the complexity of what your content is. And in the mortgage space, I'd say it's probably some of the most complex content out there to develop. And literally, when you're building something like that, you do have to have a dedicated team that literally will work heads down and collect samples. And I literally spent 3 months going through every piece of loan documentation we had for as many loans as we had and getting the samples to build a model. You can't build a model of recognition or intelligent capture process without samples.
Right. And what do we have, 247 document types? So you can imagine collecting the samples for that, and the minimum number is around 100 samples.
If you really want a true great classification, they can do it as for as little 20, but if you really want what we have, which is like a real kind of old school classification engine, because we wanted just to guarantee that accuracy, we went after the largest amount of sample collection.
Awesome. We still have everybody with us. Why don't we take, I think we probably have time for maybe 2 more questions.
Here's one for Brian. How did you get staff to buy in to such exposure to metric-driven results that expose these performance work habits?
So I think that's the biggest thing, is like anytime you're going to actually create transparency and visibility into a process, staff will get concerned, like, well, what does that mean and how am I going to be held accountable? Well, it actually had the reverse effect. People just start running their own reports, and that's all the time now. It actually became a competitive opportunity where they're now actually competing with each other. So one of the things Kofax is able to do in its batch management process is it actually tells you how large a batch is, and we actually have a report, we call it the big hefty, because that means those are all the batches that are really, you know, gigantic. And most people in the past, we actually had to change the name of the batch class because people were avoiding the big hefties, and so we were having to hide the name to try to get people to actually do that work. Well, now, because they actually have that visibility, they're actually fighting over big hefties. And now we have challenges. Like last year, it was everybody's responsibility to do a minimum of 50,000 documents, right? And it was like, well, can we beat that number? And, you know, so this year, the goal is 75,000 documents. And I had people hitting well over 120,000 by the year end volume that they had reviewed. But by having the ability to create something that says I'm willing to be transparent, actually our culture changed culture. And it actually made them more successful, and it really has been driving them to even think outside the box and look for continuous improvement. Right. One of my, as we mentioned earlier in the webinar, one of my own staff was like, we have all these batches that are coming through, and we know there's only one thing in it, and we know it's whatever the lender says. And so literally, he just, because of, you know, having this transparency and visibility in our process, is like, let's just push them through. And as Charlie said earlier, it's 50% of our volume.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge thing. And now, because of the fact that they are exposed,
engaged.
They are.
And from my point of view, when you see them, I don't want to say they're excited about it, but there isn't a dread to go open up the big hefty batch anymore. Right. It's more of a, hey, I'm going to get better, and I'll probably get rewarded for all my efforts because everybody's seeing it.
That's right.
You know, so the exposure is huge.
Awesome. Probably time for one more question, Josh.
Okay, we spoke a little bit about how things, how people internally view your processes. How about your customers? How do your customers view your processes now that this implementation is complete? Oh,
it's incredible what the difference is, because now, like literally, again, we used to have a lot of false suspenses. They had no idea what was going on with the status of their loan. Now they're getting almost near immediate feedback once they deliver it as to what their content is and why or why not a decision could be made. And actually, again, I'm willing to show that interface to anyone. Unfortunately, I had a connectivity issue today, or I would have been presenting from my own laptop. But I'm more than happy to share that interface with any of anybody on the webinar today, so they can see like what it's an immediate and direct impact, and actually is helping to drive better business to us, and it's creating a higher approval rating amongst our partners, and I think that's a huge thing. Creating visibility is something that was before the black box has made tremendous gains for our customers and our partners.
Awesome. We have 2 minutes left. Gentlemen, one last tip, your best tip or like best advice, piece of advice.
I would say do your homework and make sure all of this takes time, and give yourself room to do it. You don't have to turn it on all at once. Take a piece of it and get it done right, and then grow from there.
That's right. And again, if you don't have to reinvent the wheel, don't. Call me, you know, email me, whatever. I've been running this kind of environment for 11 years. So, you know, I'm happy to be a resource to anybody who's starting out midway or even more evolved. But you know what? Use your resources, and if you have someone who's willing to share, take advantage of that. That's my biggest tip.
Charlie, is Buddha Logic taking on new clients?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And to echo Brian's point, is that, you know, we're happy to share information as well, and would love to talk to you about any challenges you're having, whether you're just starting out or you're in the middle of it, or you've got something built and it's not working right.
Awesome. That said, thanks so much for your interest. We still have everybody on for this webinar. Stay tuned for our next webinar. And have a great day.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.